could be better. I'm not sure if you're hearing me.
Yes, I am. I just don't
Okay.
know what to reply. I heard the music and I heard you say it could be better.
Yeah.
And I think we just roll it on the road. We take it for a spin around the block and see how it feels, how it takes the curves.
Yeah, I hear that. So
I went
you
to
were at the New York State Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm in this big brother, big sister thing, right?
Oh.
Big brother thing. And the big brother group in Syracuse said, hey, we got all these tickets to the New York State Fair, which is the New York State Fair. It's like the big fair for the state of New York every year, where they have all the goats and the pigs and the cows and the rides and the turkey legs, and the National Guard show up and the state police show up, and they've got demonstrations and the Park Service shows up and all that kind of stuff when everybody has a wonderful time. And it is not my scene. I'll tell you, I'll tell you that. I don't feel like getting on rides.
Mm-hmm.
And the food is repulsive.
What is repulsive? The food. Oh, yeah.
No, the food is not repulsive, but it's one of those things where you make your mistakes really early. So I spoke to the young man accompanying me. I said, and we started like 10 o'clock. I said, are you hungry? He said, yeah, kind of. I said, well, what have you eaten so far today? He said, nothing. I said, it's 10 o'clock. You haven't had anything to eat?
Oh.
I said, yeah. I said, so we walked in there, we parked the car, came in. It was really set up wonderfully. It's a wonderful setup. They've really got a well-oiled machine there. And it's huge. Mm-hmm. It is a very big fair. And we walked in there and I saw, there's like a tater tots place right off to the side.
What could go wrong?
Do you want tater tots? I said, I don't know. I said, do you want to try the tater tots? Do you want to, or are you in the market for something else?
Mm-hmm.
And what we didn't realize is that there's a whole ocean of food just beyond the first echelon. When you walk into the thing, the first line of it, you go past that, and it's like the Emerald City. It's like nonstop turkey legs, chocolate covered deep fried Oreo cookies, and other very heart smart offerings from America. So we got the tater tots, which were not good. They were overdone and they were horrible. And then I just said, look, let me just stop at this place and get a cup of coffee. This one thing. I think they had like one guy with one like little machine to make the coffee, and there weren't that many people. There were only like 10 people staying there, but we waited a good half an hour for my cup of coffee. And I said, look, I'm all, and then we turned around, but I'm sorry, I'm going on and on and on and on. But we went in there, but he was very, he wanted to go on the rides. So I was like, great. And the whole thing was paid for by Big Brother, Big Sister. They gave me a parking pass and they gave both of us unlimited ride bracelets, and stuff like that. So it was great. There's no skin off my nose. And it's a scene, man. It's a real scene. It's really big and it's really garish, and it's not the usual. It's not my usual scene. So it was pretty interesting seeing that. I wish I'd brought my hat with me. I brought it in the car, but I left it in the car, which was stupid.
What kind of hat? What did you get?
Just a little. I just have a little golf cap thing that I use to keep the sun off my face, which I brought with me to the car. But then when we parked the car, I forgot to take it with me, which was incredibly stupid.
Then you were out in a field all day. Yeah,
I should have just walked back and gotten the damn hat. But I didn't want to leave him unattended, because if he gets abducted, then you have to explain that to Big Brother, Big Sister. And they get really pissy about that when you like lose the client. They get very angry about that kind of thing. They sort of sour on you. So I stuck with him, just made sure he was okay. So
leave him by
that's what I did today. What?
Leave him by the bottle game, where the people kind of have mastered the art of like lifting a bottle with a coin on the end of a string, and it looks so easy when they do it, and then you try and do it and you lose about $150.
Nah, I think he had a good time, but he's a man of few words. Let's put it that way.
Oh,
so that's what I was doing today. So you didn't read Dominion.
No, I didn't. You know what's so funny was that you were like, "How about Dominion?" I'm like, I thought it was a mistype. I thought it was like autocorrect for Damien. So I
No,
thought you
it
were
was a
inviting
book.
Damien back, but it was
No.
a book called Dominion. Which then when you then were like, "I've read Dominion," I'm like, oh, it wasn't Damien. It was a book called Dominion, and I haven't touched it. So please enlighten me. But it sounded like it was hard to get through. What was the deal?
Well, I didn't get through it, and I gotta be careful because one of our listeners is Ben Soto, who's the guy who recommended the book to me, and I love Ben,
Okay.
and but I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by the big questions.
Right.
Like why the West?
Hmm.
Why did the West come flying off the blocks in 1500 and invade the planet? And there's pretty good scholarship about that. And then there's Jared Diamond's book Guns, Germs, and Steel, which
Right.
is
Yep. Famous.
why when Europeans came to, well, it's actually much more fundamental, but the best way of phrasing it is why when Europeans came to the New World, the diseases from Europe like wiped out enormous amounts of people in the New World, but the people in the New World, their diseases didn't wipe out an equivalent number of Europeans. And he gives a very compelling he gives a very, very compelling thesis about that and stuff like that. And to me, one of the other one of the great questions is why Christianity? Why when the why did it how did it go from being a pariah religion in the Roman Empire to becoming the official religion of the Roman Empire, and then basically becoming the Roman Empire when the Western Empire falls apart? The
Right.
church takes on a lot of the functions. And so that's a fascinating story to me.
And does Dominion deal with that? Because my answer, of course, is just Constantine.
Dominion says it deals with it, and I don't think it does.
Mm.
Um, Dominion strikes me, but again, I've read 26% of it. I
Yeah.
actually jumped near the end, but it's
Yeah.
a strictly chronological book.
Oh.
He starts at the beginning and he goes through, and near the end, he's talking about John Lennon and he's talking about
Huh.
John Paul II and stuff I mean, it's just very much date driven. And it's very much, uh, his he says he's going to address that, but mainly what he seems to be saying is that Christianity is the most dominant way of thinking in the entire planet and the most successful and amazing structure of thought, and no
Wow.
matter what you do, you can't get away from it. Which sort of, well, it's just like I just inherently, it feels like a book written for the world of YouTube and TikTok,
Yeah.
which
I
is
mean
that
that
this
sounds like
changes
starting.
everything.
Yeah, that starts. It sounds like starting with a conclusion. To me, I mean that's all right. I mean, I'm curious about that, but I don't. That's
I don't know
very
if I'm
odd.
800 pages curious. I'm
Yeah.
much more interested in the first question, which is why?
Yeah.
Like, why does it go from being a pariah religion to becoming the official religion of the Roman Empire?
I mean,
Why that?
I think because it started as being more of a peaceful tradition and then became more of a violent one. And uh, now this is cursory knowledge, so I really would like to get better data on how all of this happened, especially around Constantine. But the story that he had a vision and he saw a crucifix, and
Yep.
then a voice said, "By this symbol shall thee conquer." And before then, as I understand it, the symbol for Christianity was a fish. And then it became the crucifix, which is an instrument of torture. Uh, so Constantine would march into battle to convert the pagans with his soldiers carrying crucifixes. So you'd think they saw the crucifixes and were inspired to love, their fellow man. No, they saw the crucifixes and were like, "Oh, they're going to torture us to death. We surrender." Um, yeah, I think that under that Christianity became a conquering tool, um, a movement of conquering, basically, a religion
Hmm.
of conquering through violence, and it didn't stop um, really through the Enlightenment. It didn't stop. Maybe it never stopped. That's a bit of a
Well,
radical take. I mean,
well, I'll keep slogging through it, but I gotta say the guy's writings. I mean, there's the history of Christianity, which I am no expert in.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But I am not 100% ignorant of it either. And then there's sort of the meta discussion of why this, but I guess that can be said of any, why Islam, you know,
right,
why Buddhism?
yeah,
Why do these take root? I guess you could say that about any major religion. So maybe it's not amazing. Maybe there's nothing really special. It's just the time has to be right, and there's a certain set of factors that happen. I mean, there's one fundamental argument. There's like the zero level argument, which is one that you can't really talk about, which is that it's the will of God. Christianity experiences success because that was the will of God. So anyway, there's nothing you can say about that. You just have to
well,
park that off to the side. I'm just saying because I feel bad sometimes because it seems like everybody dissects these things rationally, and I'm just as a courtesy to people who have true belief, I like to say maybe it's just the will of God. And we're just talking about nothing here. So just FYI, we're not ruling that out. And I
right.
do that as a courtesy. But that's as far as the courtesy goes. So it's kind of fascinating to me why and why Christianity, why it enjoy this incredible success at this particular time. And so I don't know if I'm going to get an answer to that. And it's a long book, and the writing
Mm-hmm.
style really annoys me.
Oh well, yeah, that doesn't sound like fun at all.
Well, but that's life,
It's a
It's not
rollicking bad
fun.
time.
So, so
I
I'll see if
always
I can keep chipping away at it. Go ahead. Always what?
I keep remembering John Gorka's quote when I think it was his album "Land of the Bottom Line" came out, and he was being interviewed on one of these stations, and he said, and maybe someday we'll be able to get him on here, but he said, "It's not the happiest album, but it is long."
It's got that going for it. I I sent you that link to the they might be giants.
Did I miss it? I don't know. What was that?
It was a link to a performance they did on KEXP.
Oh,
Um, and they it's first it was posted very recently, and I think they played it very recently.
uh huh.
If so, they sound really good. And they did this one song that made me laugh out loud, which is Synopsis for Latecomers. Have you heard that one?
No, no.
You got to listen to it. It's basically, for all of you who've arrived late, here's a synopsis,
Oh wow.
circumstances. It's too early to tell exactly what's going on. But we're working very carefully. There's all this circumlocution. Then finally says, and about the shipping container that's covered with crabs. Yeah, we're waiting for more data. And we know that you're all really concerned about the main question, which is who ate the babies?
Yes, I've
Who
heard
ate the
this.
babies?
Who
Yeah.
ate the babies? I've heard that song. That's a great song. Well, and actually, I mean, my kids actually reintroduced me to They Might Be Giants, and they started backwards. So they basically got to know the newest albums first, and then, I introduced them to Flood and John Henry and all the others, Lincoln. But yeah, they started with "Turn Back the Hands of Time." So they started singing
Right.
this cool song. I'm like, wow, what is that song? Who wrote that? They're like, They Might Be Giants. I'm like, what? And like I'd been asleep for years and years.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, I sent that link to you. It was pretty funny. So
Let's see
what's
who
going
ate the
on, Jim
babies.
Land?
Oh man, a lot. It's been busy. I've been recording a solo project. I don't know what to call it yet. A lot of about 12 songs are recorded. Vocals and guitar are done from the song a week from this year. So all of these songs are from the year 2025, and 12 of them done. So I still have um, another 20 to record if I want to. I think that there might be another 6 that I'd want to record, but I'm going to mix these down first and then get them out there. And probably and have to have them mastered, of course. Um, and I also will have, as best I could, I played to a click track. And so some of them will be good enough, synced up with the click track, to send to you, to Kurt, and to Jeff Torella. Um,
Right.
so yeah, and then I can have kind of an album of remixes from these very simple me and a guitar. Some of it was the electric and some of it was the acoustic in terms of how I recorded. But I recorded both acoustically. And there was one song though where I just absolutely could not sync up with the click, and it's this song called Dissonance Lament. And it's because it's kind of so swingy that any even a drum machine, it just didn't really sync up with it. It's kind of a jazz song. So it's got its own breath. And so that's just, I mean, I start and end within the tempo, but I'm veering all over the tempo in the middle of it. And when I tried to lock it up, it sounded terrible. So that one is just the way that is. The rest of them came out really well. How You Doon is on there. I Will Not Be Silent is on there. Amy's Dates is going to be on there. Some of the newer songs, Homecoming, and another damn song about heartbreak, and a lot of them. A lot, yeah, a lot. 12 out of the 32. And maybe that's what I'll call it. 12 out of 32. It's
Well, good.
descriptive. I don't know. I don't know what to call it.
Okay.
Hmm.
So what
But
else is going on?
so yeah, so that's happening. Been with the kids all week, which has been fun. Oh, my eldest and I have been watching Fallout on Prime.
Right.
Now, Fallout is based on the Bethesda games that I think it was originally the game was called Wasteland, and it came out in 19. It was a really early computer game. I forget. I read about the history of it. I think it was finally released as Fallout in 97, but I think they started working on it in like 88, you
Huh.
know. And now there's been a series of Fallout games. I think this show is based loosely on the plot of the Fallout 3 game, which is on Xbox, which I, now have sort of native in my TV.
That's right.
And so I can, now that we've finished the series, one of the sickest shows I've ever seen. It's almost like they just imagine the worst possible, most disgusting thing, and then like, excellent, make that happen. So gross, so gross, but kind of great and very funny. And actually, the plot is kind of interesting.
Huh.
Um, so I recommend it, but you're just going to spit up your beer in some places because it's so disgusting.
Oh.
And it's really just trying to out disgusting itself all the time. But the actors are great. Kyle MacLachlan is in it. He's really good. Um, the lead actor is so good, and the guy who plays the ghoul is he's very famous, and I can't. His name is escaping me right now, but he's fantastic too. And yeah, I mean, it's jumping back and forth in time, kind of before the apocalypse and after the apocalypse, and the guy who plays Maximus is super. It's good. I don't
Huh.
know. I think you might hate me for suggesting it, but it's kind of a rollicking, horrifying good time.
Okay.
And it goes by fast. It does like 8 episodes total in the first season, and the second season is coming out in December. So might be worth checking out.
Huh. Okay.
My eldest absolutely adored it. Just loved it, and there was stuff in there that was wildly inappropriate for them. So yeah,
Cool.
bad dad,
Bad. Yeah.
bad dad,
Failed parenting
failed parent.
experiment. Ah.
Don't tell anyone. He said on the podcast. Um, yeah, I mean it's not like X-rated, but it doesn't shy away from any topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. and it will use any topic for humor and to disgust. So that's kind of that was cringeworthy in some places. Um, otherwise, uh, yeah, I've been drawn into these random. Uh, I'm fascinated by how many kind of live discussions on TikTok there are about religion, the existence of God. Everybody's arguing faith versus science, flat Earth versus spherical.
Yeah, you told me about you told me last time about this whole flat Earth thing going on.
It's yeah, it's well, mm, it's determined, and I think it's tied into the religious discussion. I think it really does make sense you if you have a certain level of intelligence and you love your faith, and you love your Christian faith especially, and you believe it wholeheartedly. The idea of a spherical Earth orbiting a star that's hurtling around the outside of a black hole centered galaxy that is one of billions of galaxies is a problem, right? When you really contemplate that, you're like, oh, that we're inconsequential then. So it almost flies in the face of the idea that we're important to a creator that created the universe. The universe is too big. And so they prefer a model that is very small. And the model that they have is a dish with a dome on top of it. And there are lights on the dome, but that doesn't signify that they're celestial bodies.
Right.
And there's a bright light on the dome that doesn't signify a giant ball of fusion powered gas. And there's a smaller light, which is the moon, which they
Right.
believe emits its own light. And they don't believe in Antarctica. Antarctica is a giant ice wall surrounding the plate. And so they don't believe in the South Pole. And they have a lot of very complicated models for explaining why, when it's daytime in Argentina and in Canada, it's not daytime in England, right? Which is a problem um, with a flat Earth model, right? The sun, the sun's just sitting on over a plate somewhere. Everybody always sees the sun, right? So they have to really think of some very strange physics around the makeup of what they call the firmament, which is a dome that maybe has water in it. They believe that NASA is in charge of the conspiracy to keep us from knowing the true nature of
Wow.
reality.
Yeah.
Um, and so their funding is truly astonishing, I think, because they have guards all around the edge of the world to keep people from finding out that Antarctica either just goes on forever or stops suddenly. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's surprising. I mean, it's just whenever people debate them and say, isn't it simpler? Just right,
Occam's razor. Look, I
right.
mean, yeah,
We're on a ball, and
yeah,
and they really, literally, they'll say, but so you're saying people are upside down on the ball,
yes, yeah, they are.
which is like, you mean the directive of gravity is absolute and not towards the center of the ball? So I don't think it's stupidity. I think it is a kind of a uh, stubborn assertion,
Sure.
because if they admit that it's a ball, it just shakes their faith, and
Uh,
that's a big deal, you know, because that really impacts how they live their lives and what happened to the loved ones they had that died and everything. So there are these debates. when I was growing up, there was just AM radio. And you might hear some crazy things on AM radio, but you're up at 2 in the morning, you turn on the AM radio and there's one crazy guy, or there's one guy who's just really excited about taking the call from the really crazy person with the tinfoil on his head. And
Right.
if you find that you hit that at just the right time, you get one absolutely out there idea, and you're like, then you talk about it all the next day because what I heard last night on AM 1170.
Yeah.
Bob's show. There was one guy called in and had this crazy idea about blah blah blah, and that was fun. But now you
Everybody has a
can't
radio station.
you can't throw a stick, in
Yep.
the TikTok verse for one. And I think what's interesting is that it's the interactivity, right? I mean, it's different than it might be similar to Facebook. For some reason, it just really encourages a lot of this sort of discussion. And also, there's a lot of weird rules, like you can't say die. You can't say things like, rape. You can't say sex. So everyone has kind of trained themselves to say unalive, grape, and smex. There's this like code language, TikTok code language
It's like
that's up
leet.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like leet, exactly. Smex. Now, will that be what people end up saying? Like, will those actually become the words? There's a
Yeah.
chance.
Now you're going to a different, yeah. Double plus ungood.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah,
new
exactly.
speak.
Yeah. It is a kind of a newspeak, only because of the censorship. So interesting. Smex is funny. And virgin, can't say virgin. So that's harder to like. So people say like smagurgin or something like that. I find it, look, I'm living on my own now. So, sometimes if I can't sleep, there I am. I'm like, oh, I'll just turn on the crazy channel. And
Yep.
it is very compelling. It's very compelling. And then there, of course, there are some very interesting people. There's a lot of interesting atheists who are like, look, tell me why you think atheists are all evil, or am I going to go to hell and all that. And then, of course, people start screaming, which, yeah, it's like a Jerry Springer show, audio only. I'm trying to apologize for doing for tuning into this stuff, but I'm finding it fascinating.
And this is where you digging this up?
Well, TikTok, yeah,
Okay.
just the live channels on TikTok.
Yeah.
And it may also be that I've kind of curated this because I've watched a lot of Dan McClellan. I've mentioned it before. Dan McClellan. He's a theologist that's a scholar of the Bible. And I do find the Bible fascinating. So this sort of ties in with Dominion. And that makes me wonder, well, it sounds like I wouldn't enjoy Dominion, but I would enjoy more exploration of why Christianity became so popular. I think it's just an extension, like the Roman Empire disintegrated and it was replaced by the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, and that
Right.
is a violent institution. I mean, it's a conquering institution. It's the same kind of thing. I mean, it's not like the Pope is literally violent, but the popes have had violence done in their name, right? There's
Sure.
the Crusades and the Inquisition,
Uh-huh.
and it makes me wonder, kind of like what's at the what's at the root of the religion of obviously the Bible's at the root of the religion, but the problem with the Bible is as soon as you start reading it, if you're not attached, if you're not desperate to find meaning, like life meaning or proof that we live after we die, or proof that there's a higher hand in all of creation, if you're not attached to that, it's a very strange collection of stories. It starts with two different creation myths in Genesis. That blows my mind. Genesis 1 has a different creation myth with regard to the first people than Genesis 2. And the apologist explanation for that is Genesis 1 is poetic, not literal, and Genesis 2 is literal.
You've completely lost me. I've never heard about Genesis 1 and Genesis 2.
Oh, man and women are created at the same time out of the dirt in Genesis 1. And Genesis 2, man is created, and then Eve is created from his side, not his
Right.
rib, but his side. Um, and of course, people ask interesting questions, like if the sin was to eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, how did Adam and Eve know it was wrong to eat the fruit?
Yeah. You know what?
I know you don't want to, but so but the thing is, you start reading it, like, how did this text,
Right, exactly. It's
like, how
I'm
did it
not getting this.
spawn anything? Right? I think the thing is, almost nobody ever read it, and that was definitely true in the Middle Ages because it was in Latin, right? And the Mass was in Latin, and the Bibles were all translated in Latin, and that's not even, they were in Greek first, right? So I don't think anybody really reads the Bible, which makes it an interesting book to read. It's it's not a banned book, but it might as well be because nobody seems to be reading it who really cares about it. And there's these discussions between atheists and Christians are all like the atheists saying, well, in Exodus 24:5, this happens, but that contradicts this. And then the person's like, well, show me that passage. Show me that. I haven't read that. So all the atheists are like trying to
Right,
teach
they're
the
reading the book.
Christians
Yeah,
what's
the
in the
atheists know
Bible.
more about the Bible.
Like, why? Why are the Christians asking what's in the Bible to the atheists?
Yeah.
So
I can't imagine a more pointless conversation in my life.
Well, why is it pointless? Why do you think it's pointless? That's it's pointless to you. I mean, but
it is. It's pointless to me. Yeah, I agree, because it's about matters of faith, and it's about something that's indescribable and ineffable. And people say that these teachings guide their life. It's like, okay, great.
Well, that's fine, and I think most of the people
I just don't feel a compelling reason to disabuse somebody of their beliefs.
I think
Really
there's a compelling reason, which is they want to put the 10 Commandments in all the schools. Right? They want to force religion on the United States of America.
I think that's a different.
Not all of them, but I mean, there's a movement.
That's different. But saying that, arguing against that, and arguing that Genesis has an incomplete explanation of a certain physical phenomena, those to me are like unrelated issues. Like they have no relationship to each other.
Yeah, right. But I think that it is more like if it's if you say you want to teach the Bible in public school as truth, well, I think I ought to read that book and see how much you can actually teach it as truth. I actually think it's a good idea to have kids read the Bible. As an atheist, I think there's no more powerful way to convert people to atheism than to read the Bible. Just front to back, read the whole damn thing. But no, I mean, like, just religious law is threatening, and I don't think that we can just ignore that. I hope it doesn't happen.
Well, it is a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Or so they say. So I've been told. But yeah, to me, it's, arguing with people about their faith, except, as you said, when it impinges on other people's rights.
Right.
It's like, look, I don't really care what you think about dinosaurs, and I don't really care what you think about this, and I'm sure you don't care what I think about a lot of things, stuff like that. But when you tell me that, women can't can't go to school anymore. Okay, then
Yeah. Yeah.
we've gotten to a point where you're infringing other people's rights. Now, we're always infringing each other's rights all the time. We're telling people you can't kill each other, and you're telling people they can't throw litter on the sidewalks. So we're always infringing on rights. So it's not that radical a concept. But there's a lot of things that people believe from from all kinds of religious traditions and from all kinds of belief systems that I I, I don't get it, but it generally doesn't impact on my life and the choices I can make and the things that I can do. The problem is that when your beliefs do that, and when you're saying, "Hey, no, you can't do this, and you can't do that thing because it's bad," um, you know, like prohibition.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Alcohol is bad.
um,
Right. Can't
alcohol
drink
is
it.
bad, and people, but in that case, there's plenty of good empirical evidence
Yeah.
that alcohol
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
bad for
Yeah.
you. I can point to a lot of data, but that's just me and my religion, which is the religion of data and the sort of the enlightenment rationalist song and dance of the past 200, 300 years. um so you know I find it fascinating that people who are quote unquote atheists feel a need to disabuse uh, Christians of their beliefs. I'm just not sure
To
where.
be clear, the atheists who feel compelled, I do not personally feel compelled to disabuse Christians of their belief. I think if they believe, if they get comfort from their belief, then that's fine and well. If they are starting to evangelicalize, if they're starting to try to convert other people, well, that can be pretty uncool and has been in history. But I'm still not heavily. I'm not compelled to get in their face. The
Right.
the atheists who start these channels where they start these conversations, they're all former evangelical Christians. Most of them grew up in households where they were told they were in kind of a very strict,
Mhm.
usually not even Catholic, just usually kind of a Baptist situation where
Well, yeah,
they were
the
made to feel ashamed about
Protestant, yeah.
themselves. Yeah,
Mhm.
although Catholics do that too. The notion of original sin, and then they suddenly had a moment where they're like, wait a minute, this is all bullshit. And they want the other Christians to have that moment too,
Right,
because it was their freedom. They found their freedom. They were finally okay with who they were. It wasn't a sin anymore, and they didn't have to worry about hell after being
right.
yelled at about hell every
Okay,
Sunday
well, that
morning.
makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Then you believe that a crime is being committed.
I
You
think so. I
believe,
think that's what's
yeah,
happening on in
that
these
a big
channels.
lie
Yeah,
is being told, and you have to disabuse people of the lie because it's actually cramping their lives.
right.
Okay, well, um, good luck with that. I mean, it's no, I
Yeah,
should have said that. That's kind of a stupid statement. No, look, if that's their motivation, if they feel like they have to stop a crime from happening, okay. But I
yeah.
think just that makes sense to me. Actually, that actually is a good answer, and I it has changed my mind. But I think people just sort of going in. I always wonder if sometimes people are just picking fights, or
Well,
it's
right. If it
some
is,
bot or some AI that's been programmed to go in there and just stir up drama on a channel so more people watch it.
well,
But
there is another element to this, which is the shit sells, right? It not only gets viewers and gets engagement because it racks up rage on both sides.
mhm,
Um, there's a whole monetary system, evolving on these platforms where you can kind of send micro tips. Actually, a lot of things that you were saying, like, 1/1000th of a penny is
mhm,
like a flower or something. And so then
right.
they kind of collect these 1/1000th of a penny, and then they have a PayPal account you can donate to. And, some people make, I don't know if they make a living. I mean, there's one guy, Dan something or other, who it seems to be his entire income. But he's one guy in Australia. There might be maybe 100 people like that doing various things. Um, so, you know, um, I don't know where I was going with that. That's the other dynamic is increased rage and increased engagement. And obviously, I'm one of them. I'm contributing to that now, uh, and I'm not entirely proud. I'm admitting that I'm caught, and that I do find it interesting. Um, and yeah, hopefully, I'll be able to kick this habit. Probably will, or else I'll
You're just
start a
gonna
channel like rake in the 1/1000 sub, rake in the flowers.
you got to find a hook.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah,
find some kind of hook that will enrage everybody. Um, yeah, no, it's a fascinating thing to me. You know, Buddhism,
right.
extraordinarily successful. Um,
Yeah.
came out of India,
Mm-hmm.
uh, became massive in China, became massive in Japan.
Wiped out in India too. Wiped out. So that Hindus and Muslims wiped it out. Um, so it lived on in Tibet and in China and Japan and
And
in
Cambo
Cambodia
Thailand,
and
yeah,
Thailand. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's not entirely wiped out in India. Obviously, the Dalai Lama has in Dharamsala, but the I mean, yes. I mean, there was universities, there were Buddhist universities in India, and those went away. I forget when. But anyway, sorry, I
Why?
interrupted.
No,
Yeah,
but
why
why?
why pick on the Buddhists? I don't, religion, I guess, because Ganesh, I have no idea. You know, I who are they bothering exactly? They don't barely even talk. You know, um, yeah, the centers around compassion but not always. As, in Cambodia, Buddhists have been doing a genocide, which I just find mind blowing. I don't understand where you get justification for that. And maybe the hope of all this talk about the Bible is like, hey, let's go to the core text and see the reason behind the violence that's perpetrated because of it. You'd think that in a place like Cambodia, you'd find no justification anywhere in the sutras for um, wiping out the Muslims. But as I understand it, and I'm not well informed, that's what's been going on.
Huh.
It's shameful.
Well, the one thing that shows up time and time again is a religious order gains adherents, and then there's like a monastery. They
Yeah.
they build
Yeah.
monasteries and they acquire property,
Yeah.
and they're given tax exemptions or other things. They're given certain special status in society, and then somebody comes along and says, "You have too much stuff, and we're going to take it now."
Yeah. That's
And so
probably it. Yeah.
that's what happened in China. At one, I did read this book, this overall history of China, and this happens periodically. I think is that all of a sudden it's like, okay, the Buddhist monasteries, they have too much land and they have too much influence, they have too much power, so let's take it. Same thing with Henry VIII and the monasteries
Yeah.
during Henry VIII's reign. Okay, they got too much money, they got too much power, they got too much stuff. Let's take it.
I know where we can
Uh,
get some money.
yeah, but if
Yeah.
if you read the history, there's plenty of people arguing that the monasteries in England had it coming.
Hmm.
They were really asking for it. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. But that seems to be a common beef
Hmm.
is when these religious orders and the Catholic Church, the
Yep.
selling of indulgences to
Yep.
fund St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah.
And we saw where that led to.
Fear of hell is very powerful, and that's actually another thing that a lot of the atheists are saying is like it's not in the Bible. Say what you want. That idea of hell is not in the Bible.
There's a lot
So
of
if
things
you're
that are.
worried about that, read it. It's not there. It was made up after. Tons of things were made up after that we just think are in there, and they're not. Um, and there's a ton of things in there that we don't think are in there. So it does often come down to property and wealth and the seizing of those things. It's interesting how Buddhism took hold in Tibet. I don't know how much of the stories are true, because Tibet was ruled by warlords. And then suddenly, not suddenly, but over a fairly short period of time, they became ruled by monks, philosopher kings, teaching the Dharma. Now, how different was that? I mean, I suppose very different in some ways and not different in others. You still had a government set up, and you still had, rule of law of some kind. And it's also been said that in Tibet, I mean, by Chogyam Trungpa, who left Tibet, that in some ways Buddhism was perverted and dying in Tibet because the average person didn't follow the precepts, didn't follow the Eightfold Path. All people were doing was making offerings at the monastery, right? Treating
Right.
the Buddha like a god and making an offering and hoping for a favor,
Right.
which is kind of like standard god stuff everywhere. Except the Buddha is absolutely not a god. And Buddhism is one of the only religions where whether or not their figurehead existed makes no difference. Um, and yet it gets treated like a regular religion in many places.
Huh. I think that might be a really good thing for a project for us.
Okay.
Is and the good thing is that you are well situated to do this, which is I'm hoping there's a good book out there which is a good and solid history of Buddhism.
I'll ask my teacher, Jim Rosen, and
Please.
see what he says. Yeah,
And
there
we should read
probably
that.
is. Yeah.
We should
Something
read
not
that.
dogmatic, like not because so much of it can be mythology about figures like Padmasambhava, the Buddha himself, Nagarjuna, these figures who were considered Buddhists themselves. It's hard to figure out if we can get the unvarnished story,
Uh-huh.
that void of all the religious trappings and stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
If
I'll
it's
ask and see if there's something out there like that.
see if
That'd be
there's
great.
that, and maybe what I'll do is I'll poke around and see if there's a good scholarly, some other something in the line of Dominion, but perhaps uh, a little less subjective than Dominion is.
Right.
Um, so because I think these are interesting questions. I think these are fundamental questions, and you know, and I know a little bit about Islam and stuff like that, but I'd be interested because I really know nothing about Buddhism, and it is fascinating how it's the old up until like 1800 it was the only significant intellectual tradition that ever was ever imported by China and Japan. Like China and Japan were very much sort of self-contained societies, and they didn't really like they it wasn't like they were taking like a lot of intellectual traditions or ideas from India or Europe or anything like that.
No,
Buddhism
it's
is the
true.
big is the great outlier,
Well,
and Buddhism.
you had
Uh,
Confucianism in China, and that
yes,
dovetailed in Taoism, and those both really, I mean, not a very far step to Buddhism, and in Japan, Shintoism. So that's yeah. Then I don't know what was in Thailand, so this would be interesting.
yeah. So if you can dig up a volume, I'd like to read that
Yeah,
because it's something I really don't. I know enough about. I know enough about Christianity. I mean, I know enough to make myself dangerous. I've read parts of the Bible. I took a bunch of history classes, and I
yeah.
actually went to a Catholic school for a year. So I'm not ignorant of Christian traditions. Um, but Buddhism I know nothing about. So I like to check that out.
I mean, in the West, most people don't. Um,
Right.
you say when if I say my religion is Buddhism, the conversation ends. You know.
I'm Zoroastrian.
Yep.
Okay, I gotta go.
I got into a chat on one of these, and they were like, "Well, introduce yourself. What do you believe?" I said, "Well, I'm a non-theist. Buddhist who's interested in the Bible, and so I think that one of the people said, "Wait, I want to hear about the Buddhist," and then proceeded to kind of talk over me about you know Jesus or something like that. So I don't know that people want to know about it, but that also makes it an interesting topic for here, I think.
uh-huh.
Yeah. Because we talk about a lot of stuff people don't want to know about.
What, you and me?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think we're pretty. I think we're a pretty easy pill to swallow. Quite
Yeah,
frankly,
yeah.
we're not.
No, exactly. Well, compared to the flurfers, we are.
We're pretty low cal.
Yeah, yeah. Ah, well, good. That's a good talk. Yeah. Well, so then I'll dig up a book. That might
Yep.
be more interesting. And yeah, I also wish there was a good text out there that answered the question why did Christianity take over Europe?
Yeah, I mean, there are other religions going gangbusters
Yeah.
in the Roman Empire. There is Mithraism, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah, the threefold goddess, which is a very compelling religion. The what is it? The maiden, crone, and mother. Heck, who can argue with that?
Right.
We all experience that firsthand. So, yeah, that it would be. Why? Why? My guess is violence and the threat of violence is going to be the answer, but it'd be good to kind of get a chronological feel for it.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Cool. All right, my
Till next
friend.
week. Okay.
Good talking to you.
Funny Not Funny is produced by Jim Infantino at Slab Media in Boston. Jim Infantino and Lionel Casson are the co-hosts. Our website is funnynotfunny.net. The theme music is from the song Wheel from the album Utopia Revisited by Jim. The opinions presented by the co-hosts are ridiculous and should not be taken seriously by anyone. Our intended audience is literally nobody. If you're listening to this podcast, you should probably pause to reflect on other choices you've recently made. Please do not subscribe or leave a rating or review. It only encourages us to make more. Thanks for listening.